So, the first premise, God is the necessary precondition for knowledge. That needs to be demonstrated in order for the other premises to be true. You cannot just randomly say something is a necessary precondition without demonstrating that thing exists and therefore is capable of creating or being a precondition for anything. So, what I'm asking you to do is to demonstrate that the God exists so we can apply these traits. Simply claiming knowledge exists,
You realize
which I agree.
my argument is that
Hello everyone, and this is an argument between Nikki from Beat the Cult and Chase Haggard. It's about the knowledge requiring a precondition, God being the precondition. This is a transcendental argument or tag. So let's listen to it.
these necessary preconditions for knowledge are in place, and that the necessary condition of these things is God, and that's the argument for God's existence.
I hear you. When I'm agreeing with you, here's where we agree. We agree that logic is a necessary condition for knowledge. We agree on those things. What we don't agree on is that God is a precondition for that. What I'm asking you to demonstrate, because you're claiming God is a precondition, is that the God actually exists to be a precondition. Simply saying
the argument's already for
precondition.
God's existence. This is what you're missing.
No.
Alright, so what's going on here? Chase Haggard argues that for knowledge to exist, it requires a root. And the root, from his explanation, from his worldview, is God. And that knowledge can't exist without God, right? Without the roots. So that's his argument. And Chase is asking, explain why it requires a root and why God must be the root for knowledge to exist.
What you're missing is that an argument is valid and structure doesn't mean it's sound.
And just claiming something's not sound doesn't make it not so.
I agree with you.
So what you're missing, listen, what you're missing is you're missing that the argument for God's existence is the very possibility of knowledge itself. That's the argument for God's existence.
I understand that.
So now
but the possibility of knowledge itself needs to be for the God to even be needed for the possibility of knowledge. The God needs to be demonstrated to exist before you can apply that trait.
The demonstration is the possibility of knowledge itself. This is what you're not understanding. So what is my argument?
What you're saying.
All right. So when you say the possibility of knowledge, the God must exist for knowledge to be possible. When you say possibility of knowledge, kind of vague, right? It's kind of like sounds backward. The possibility of knowledge. What does that mean? It's kind of weird to listen to, but it's more like it's clear if you say that God must exist for knowledge to exist, right? Because without God, there can be knowledge. It's much clearer if you say it like that. All right, back to it.
What is my argument?
Your argument is that God is the necessary precondition for knowledge. We have knowledge, therefore God. That is a validly. I'm not debating.
Yes, therefore God. No, but what you're missing is you're bypassing. You're not hearing me because you're bypassing the argument and you're saying to show that your argument that God exists is true. You need to show that God exists. The argument is what's already doing that.
No, and that's why I told you. I accept the.
All right. So from Chase's worldview, we have knowledge, therefore God must exist, right? Because from his worldview, knowledge can't exist without if it's not rooted on anything. So it must be rooted on something, and if it must be rooted on something, and the most reasonable root is God from his worldview.
Structure as valid. I've already told you that.
So now you need to attack now you need to actually attack my system and my account, or deny the possibility of knowledge.
No. I don't have to do that.
All right. So interesting. It's challenging. Attack my account or deny the possibility of knowledge. Right. So that's passing the burden of proof to Nikki. How do you deny the possibility of knowledge? Is God the only precondition for knowledge? Can there be any other precondition? So It's asking Nikki to provide a, a, a root, a justified root equivalent to God. Like, you must provide a root. How do you explain the origin of knowledge? So from Chase's perspective or worldview, knowledge exists because it has an origin. The origin is God, and that's what he's trying to challenge Nikki.
And I never did, simply because you claim. No, that's not actually what I need to do. What you need to do is actually demonstrate the God on which you're building your argument actually exists, because simply claiming God is a necessary precondition for knowledge, we have knowledge, therefore God, actually does need to be demonstrated. While I will admit that the argument is valid, the soundness needs to be demonstrated. Yep. There needs to be a bit
Did you hear the rest of my opening statement?
I heard it, and like I said.
Right. So what Nick is saying here, that if you're saying that if you're a God is part of the premise, it must be true. You have to it must be true, and you have to demonstrate that it's true, that God is real or true. Right. That's what Nick is argument. Just like she is an atheist and someone who does not believe in God, like it's a different it's a whole other argument, because here is coming with the assumption that God is real, and they haven't agreed to that premise being true, because like from Nick's perspective, God is not true, it's untrue, and from Chase's perspective, worldview is true.
I agree with you that we have the usage, we have the concepts of logic and all
did
of those
you hear
abstracts.
the account I gave for logic, a self, and objective telos, which are a couple of the necessary conditions for knowledge itself? That's the demonstration, Nikki. That's the demonstration.
No. Simply claiming it's the demonstration. You need to demonstrate first.
Simply claiming it's not the demonstration. You can't just claim that. You need to demonstrate it's not a demonstration.
That's what I'm doing.
Demonstrate it.
I understand that you were saying that the self and these other things are needed, and I agree with you, and I agree that we are able to use these things to navigate our environment.
And how do you account for them?
That's not what I'm about to ask you. What I'm about to
I asked you.
No, what you actually just recently asked me to do was show the flaw in your argument, and I was in the process of doing that when you interjected with a question that wasn't related to what you asked me to do. So what I'm trying to tell you is the claim that this God is responsible for these things or precondition for these things has to be demonstrated as true. Simply claiming it, because people can insert pretty much any abstract idea in there, but we need to value the actual. Okay, well, if they want to describe it a certain way and they describe something as having this type of nature and it's an abstract concept, then that doesn't have any explanatory. It has the same level of explanatory power as yours does. What needs to occur is that
it wouldn't, because it can be refuted. Demonstrate that you can plug anything into my argument, and that it can account for the possibility of knowledge.
All right. So this demonstration is asking Nikki to demonstrate how you can remove or replace God as the root, and for it to function just in the same way. That how can you explain the origin of knowledge, or origin of logic? This is the main argument of Chase's argument.
Universe creating pixies.
Okay.
Universe knowledge. They're the necessary precondition. So
okay.
That is an abstract concept.
Yeah, and how do you know these universal pixies?
Well, knowledge exists, and they're a precondition.
No, how do you know
knowledge.
How do you know about these universal pixies? Are they anything like you, or are they utterly dissimilar?
Well, you know what? They haven't revealed that to me yet. But if I pray to them tonight and ask, they might.
If they haven't revealed anything, you have no knowledge claims of these pixies. You're discussing something of which you have no knowledge of.
No, that's actually not true.
So let's get back to atheism versus Christianity.
No. Let's. Well, that's what I was actually trying to do. And if you would allow me to continue.
Well, you keep repeating you haven't demonstrated, and then I'm showing you that I have.
I have. No, you actually haven't, because what you've done
is claiming you haven't demonstrated is not a demonstration that I haven't demonstrated.
You haven't, because what you have done is you've made claims. Forming those claims into a valid argument does not actually mean the claims are true. I understand, and like I said previously to my last opponent and all the others, and what other atheists and even other Christians have said, is that in order to make a claim that this thing is accountable or precondition for something else, that thing that you're claiming is responsible in a precondition actually needs to be demonstrated. What you're doing is you're saying the existence of these things mean these things exist, but the thing itself hasn't been observed in order to be responsible for the things that
the
you're claiming
argument is for
for.
God's existence. And what you're doing is you're thinking that a demonstration, like you said before, is only empirically done. Okay? And so this has been demonstrated through how my worldview accounts for these things. So just saying, oh, it hasn't been demonstrated, you're bringing this presupposition of everything must be demonstrated empirically. I've demonstrated it logically and shown. Okay, so in order for it to have explanatory power, it must be demonstrated.
All right, so it's not. It does not require. It does not always require empirical demonstration, but empirical demonstration is so much stronger if you can demonstrate it, right? Like for instance, like how can you demonstrate that God is true? Well, what are the evidence that God is true? Well, we have the Bible, the Revelation, right? And those actually count as evidence of God's existence, right? Of of God's existence, the Bible. Like those are written accounts, and they serve as evidence, right? So like it does not require this. It does not always require visual evidence. Like take for example, if you're in a court, right? The court will acknowledge evidence, written evidence, and stuff like that. It doesn't always have to be documented with video or audio, and written evidence work just as well. So, or serve as evidence. All right, get back to it.
Empirically.
Yes.
What is your empirical demonstration for logic?
It's usage.
That's
right?
not a demonstration. I can do the example
it's
again.
The laws of law. I'm sorry. Let me specify my apologies. What I've said is that's the laws of logic and their usage.
What Nikki needs to do here is expose the weakness of the chain. Like, how is it, like, how does knowledge require God as an origin? Why does not logic requires that as an origin? That's what she needs to explore. And then they're talking about tools here, right? What is tools? Like, the tools here, usage and tools are, that's actually synonymous. Like, and it depends on the context. There are contexts where they're not the same, and there are contexts where they are the same. So this is now a matter of semantics, like, because words changes, the meaning of the words changes depending on the context.
Empirically demonstrable. What you have not done is
that's not a demonstration of the thing itself. You're just claiming, you're just making a claim. No, you didn't. You're just making a claim that you use this thing, therefore it works. I'm asking for how you justify the tool itself. How do you account for the tool itself?
I'm just going to say that.
All right, so how do you account for the tool itself? That's vague. That's very vague, and you need to have, and you need to clarify what that means, because it's like asking someone, who are you? Have you seen that movie, Anger Management, where Nicole Jackson? I mean, and he keeps asking the other guy, the protagonist, who are you? And then no matter what the answer is, like, it's always wrong, because, like, if you answer with your name, say my name is Chase, and then the person asking can just say, I didn't ask for your name. I'm asking you, who are you? And then if you tell them about the things that you like, they can tell you that I didn't ask you to tell me what you like. I'm asking you, who are you? So it's vague, and it doesn't mean anything until it's clearly defined. So how do you account for logic? Doesn't mean anything until, so that's, don't be afraid to ask questions, guys. Like, don't worry, because it's like, don't be afraid to look like you're ignorant because you don't know the meaning, and because the matter of fact is that no one really knows the complete meaning of the word, especially if it's vague. You're inclined to ask questions to have them clarify it, like, because this is semantics. Like, we can't just invent words or define words. This A dictionary of words does not always mean what it means, right? So, and meaning can change depending on the context. There's no like one meaning only. All right, get back to it.
Yes. You have actually not accounted for God. What you've claimed is that you've said that because
I have
these
shown
things
that this is
exist,
how these things are necessary for the very possibility of knowledge, and for those
Sure
things to
they
be
are.
accounted for, God is the necessary condition of those things.
Demonstrate that, please. Show that the God exists and is a
Okay.
necessary condition.
And by demonstrate, you don't mean the logical argument that I gave in my 7-minute opening statement. You mean empirical demonstration.
Because
Okay.
because that's
So you
what
want
has
an empirical
if I may,
demonstration.
this is what value. This is what okay. So just really quickly, when we have these conversations, and I know that you and I are this superfluous, just obnoxious reiteration of the same concepts. You and I are not lay people, and I understand that, but God is not simply just a concept. You yourself said,
God is personal. Yeah. God is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Yeah.
boom. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. So my mother would agree with you, my uncle, and when I bring them up because when I talk to them, they're not going to bring this bullshit, right? It's bullshit. This is bullshit.
Why is it bullshit?
And
what's your standard for what's bullshit?
Because you know that the mere logical argument for God isn't going to meet the burden of proof that you have to meet.
No, it absolutely
in order
does.
to demonstrate.
This is why I'm arguing with you
that
right
you
now.
have to meet that you have to meet in order to demonstrate the fact
So
that
you
this
just
thing is
claimed I
personal.
think my argument's bad.
No, yeah, actually you do. Because what the thing is, because here's the thing, right? And I think we got to it because you admitted something important. You admitted that this thing is personal. Yeah. Something being personal means that it has anthropomorphic traits, and at least enough to where we can interpret it, understand it, and it has that same.
We're made in God's image and likeness. Yeah, we're persons as well as God.
So that is a claim about something that exists in our physical environment, and in order to actually, it is.
I never said physical. When did I say physical?
First of all, it is, whether you say it or not.
My worldview will dictate what I believe is and isn't. And I just told you.
But the claim, despite
personhood, like I said in my opening statement, is not physical. It's metaphysical.
But
do you believe also said personhood is physical? Is your personhood located in your brain?
No. We're not kind of allowing me to finish. I was trying to piggyback.
Well, you're doing unjustified claims, and I'm trying to get you to justify them.
No, I'm actually. But here's what. But you're doing this. Okay, I'm not doing that. But what I would say is you are actually the person who's making unjustified claims, because while I already admitted that the argument you made is logical it's validly logical, it's not sound. And the reason
and you haven't demonstrated that.
Actually, I have, and here's why. Because you said clear, that this argument is logical. Fine, validly, sure. But soundness is what's important. Because
demonstrate it's not sound. Stop claiming it.
I already did.
No, you
and if
didn't.
you would allow me to finish, I can show you why.
I'm not going to just let you just repeat the same thing without actually engaging with the debate. This is how debates work.
Okay, hang on. Okay, I got to step in again. Be very quick. So you're both challenging each other to demonstrate why either the God world is justified, and Chase is asking why Nikki to demonstrate how he has not actually justified his worldview. So sure. You're both challenging each other to make the demonstration, but then you're both cutting each other off in the middle. So I would just ask that we try to be a little more charitable and let each other finish. Let's go to Nikki here to fulfill Chase's challenge to demonstrate. But then I also want to go back to Chase to attempt to fulfill Nikki's challenge to demonstrate. So sure. Continue. Let's go to Nikki first.
Well, I hope I actually can fulfill his challenge to demonstrate with what I'm about to say. Simply providing a logical argument that is valid doesn't actually give the argument weight in the real world. The concept of God isn't simply what you said. That might be maybe an argument for a deistic God. I would still have challenges with that. But the personal God that you're claiming exists, the one that's specified to this specific religion, the one that has these traits that you able to, that you claim you're able to verify, that does need to be demonstrated, because you're saying not only does this concept, can it be verified logically, but it can also be verified empirically, because you're saying it manifests in the physical world. And I'm not saying personhood or things like that. I'm not merely referring to those. You're talking about a deity that manifested as a human and did human things in the physical universe and had physical form. You will need to actually demonstrate the mechanism by which this deity did that. And simply saying that my argument is valid logically doesn't actually demonstrate that. So I would just like to ask how you can do that.
Again, so my argument, I gave the demonstration, so I'll do it again, right? We can account for these necessary preconditions for knowledge, such as logic, for example, because logic is a created universal based on God's divine idea for it, called the logi. This is an invariant thing, an invariant pattern after which God created logic. Logic is
how do you know God exists in order to create logic?
Because there's certain things necessary to make knowledge claims at all.
These things are necessary, but they do no.
And those things are fulfilled by God.
And told me not to. How?
Do you want me to repeat the same thing I just said? So logic, for example, is a created universal based on God's divine idea. Okay.
By humans.
That's your claim, and that's going to result in the impossibility of knowledge, because now it's changeable. But
no, it's not.
All right, so here's what Chase is trying to say, is that logic can only be justified if the origin is God, because if human is the origin, then it can be subjective, because humans are like, as we are, our thoughts are subjective. I mean, we like individualism, like we have individual thoughts, and like we don't always agree. Therefore, like logic can lead to the impossibility of knowledge if logic is changeable. That's what it's trying to say, because for logic to not be changeable, it has to be rooted to God, right? Because God is universal and not changeable. And if it's human, then it can lead to subjectivity. And if things can become subjective, then the laws of logic, if the laws of logic become subjective, then that they don't mean things become unintelligible.
This is my demonstration.
The environment is objective and unchangeable. Our usage to interpret it is based on its unchangeability. So that's where the usage of logic is consistent. What you need to do is you need to demonstrate the claim that the God exists that is able to create knowledge. Simply saying these things exist, which, as I said, I agree with. Yes, these things like the abstract concept that we use,
which you can't account for.
I already did, but
no,
we'll move on to what you're saying.
I'm sorry to keep cutting in here, guys. Okay, so this is a debate. I get it. John O'Cross here says Nikki keeps interrupting. Look, this is a debate. It's contentious. Both sides are interrupting each other. That's how debates work when they are contentious like this. I don't fault either of you. I don't think either of you have actually gotten out of line with your interjections and interruptions. I think you've both done your fair share, but it's been okay. But what's going on here? So Chase is claiming that the possibility and the use of knowledge is a created state, or it's using logic, which is a created thing by God. Nikki is claiming that logic is a created thing by humans. So that's really where your disconnect is. And I think you should explore who is justified in using logic being created by humans, who is justified using logic being created by God. But I'll let you guys kind of take that word.
Alright guys, we can end it right here. If you want to watch the rest of the video, go visit the Crucible Limited or the Crucible and watch the full debate there. And I hope you find this one entertaining and informative, and I hope to see you on the next one. Bye bye.